When he launched his website, he went from getting 2 sales calls a week to 2 sales calls a day. So much so that he started charging $75 for an intro call. And you're going to keep putting yourself in situations that you've never done before, and you'll feel self-doubt. And that's okay. If you're not growing and you're not putting yourself in these situations, you're not going to reach that next version of yourself.
Masterful leaders for men building business, family, and self. Hosted by Schneur Frankel.
Our guest today is Schneur Smith, the founder of SchneurSmith.com, an elite website strategist who specializes in solving a highly specific problem, the online reputation gap. Armed with a Master of Business Administration and a background in psychology, Schneur steps into the boardrooms of established offline consultants whose real-world experience and premium pricing have completely outgrown their average digital footprint. Having engineered over 100 custom websites, he builds conversion-driven authority engines that turn raw reputation into cold inbound revenue. Schneur approaches web design from a behavioral perspective, focusing entirely on how premium clients process trust, authority, and positioning online. He's here to show us how to build a digital presence that commands the exact same authority as your offline handshake, and to maintain momentum even when facing the internal friction of persistent self-doubt. Schneur, welcome to Masterful Leaders.
It's a pleasure to be here, and wow, with that introduction, I a lot to live up to, because I really resonated with everything you said, and I really felt it. I was like, wow, this is my positioning. But the way you captured it, I'm like blown away and appreciative. But yeah, it's so nice to be here. I'm really excited to dive right in and to talk all about how websites and how your online presence can really impact how your business is showing up online, and in turn, how your business is growing.
Schneur, you recently called out a major bottleneck for highly respected offline consultants who completely fail to close deals online because they don't know how to turn LinkedIn attention into book calls.
Mm-hmm.
You also made a sharp distinction between a generic AI-generated website and a human-engineered sales asset that drives true revenue growth.
Mm-hmm.
For an operator running a high-ticket service business, what are the absolute non-negotiables required to translate a complex offline reputation into a digital framework that instantly articulates their unique value and systematically closes the right clients?
Mm-hmm. So I really like this question, because it gave me an opportunity to really go into, okay, how does this actually work? How should you be using your website? What does your website need to be doing in order for a consultant to use it as a tool in their business? And I like to look at it as every good website for a consultant or for any high ticket, service provider, it should really be answering 2 questions. It should be answering, is this the right thing? Like, is this going to solve my problem? Is this going to solve the consultant's main problem, their bleeding neck problem, the thing that's keeping them up at night? And the second part of that is, do you actually, is there the trust and the belief that this consultant and this service provider can solve that problem? So there's the 2 aspects: actually understanding, and then there is the believing and the trust piece. And when someone from LinkedIn or from a referral or someone who Googles you, they land on your website, that's a high intent buyer or a high intent referral partner. That's someone who's like, okay, I'm interested in learning more about this person's business to see if they can help me. And they're specifically looking is, hey, can this person solve my problem? And do I trust this person to deliver? And specifically with consultants and high ticket service providers, where it's not necessarily a very tangible delivery. It's not like I need a plumber, or I need someone to fix my roof. Home services. It's not the same as that. You need to be able to articulate a very strong value proposition of why someone should hire you, and you need to be able to articulate the problem you're solving, and you need to show them and create that like undeniable trust. So your website needs to be doing those two things, and in order to convert and to actually get, premium high ticket clients to buy from you. And the way to do that is by getting really, really specific and clear on who this person is, who this ideal client is, what exactly is the problem they're feeling and experiencing. And you need to walk them through and creating that trust. And I actually have this framework that I use with my clients. It's called the authority engine. And we get really, really clear. We get the clarity piece. And this is like, hey, we're getting really, really specific on what is the problem, what is the value, what is the offer, what is the process of taking them from pain to solution. And you get really clear and specific on that. And then it's the credibility piece of, hey, we're going to, build out this website. We're going to schedule a photo shoot. We're going to make sure you look like an authority, as well as collecting all the testimonials and social proof. We're going to be looking at what is the results that you've got for past clients. What is the case studies that you have? What actually is the proof that you are who you say you are? We collect all that social proof, and the visibility piece of launching it and making sure that you have your place to talk about what you do to bring in more people. Because you can spend a lot of time getting really clear and being really credible, but if you're not getting in front of the right people, then a website doesn't do anything. You definitely do need also that area to generate awareness. Now, a lot of people that I work with, they already have a lot of awareness, and those are the clients that usually get like the best success. Like I worked with a financial consultant who had like 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, and he had a WhatsApp community with hundreds of people, and he was one of the greatest like case studies that I've ever done. He got he basically doubled his already 6-figure business. He didn't give me permission to share like specific details, so I'm not sure how in depth I want to go, but he was making over $100,000 a year, and he doubled his revenue. And that's because when you have that attention, and the problem you're feeling is, people don't know necessarily what I do, and they aren't 100%, sold that I'm the best option for them, then when you insert that presence and that online authority to solve that, they already have the offline credibility, but it solves that online authority. It is something that actually converts and actually creates that results for them. And I want to be clear, like I don't guarantee these results for all my clients, but like when you have this specific problem, this is the solution.
So it sounds like for a client like that, and I like to use the term engine, it sounds like it's sort of the back end of the engine for a client like that. If they already have followers, if they already have sort of a buzz socially, so then you're creating a website that is sort of supports that machine that's already running on its own. What I'm curious about is how did he 2 times his clientele, his income with your website?
So I would say that the exact how we did it, I can break through. Like this is the structure of a high converting website, and we definitely can do that. I also want to point out like the very tactical how is that when he launched his website, he went from getting 2 sales calls a week to 2 sales calls a day. So much so that he started charging $75 for an intro call with him for a 15-minute consult, because he was like, I can't do 14 sales calls a week. It was just too much for him. But the exact structure that we followed is, and this is the structure for any high converting website, is you want to have a hero section that says, hey, you're in the right place. This is exactly what you think it is. And you're having a headline that talks about the value. You want to have a sub-headline that explains that value and explains how it works a little bit. Again, you don't want to do a massive windy explanation like I'm giving right now, just a short, brief one, and then a call to action. And that call to action will funnel them into whichever offer that you have. So whether that's going to be funneling them into a discovery call, funneling them to a sales page, funneling them to a booked consultation, a paid consultation, whatever you want that purpose of the website to increase conversions, that's what you want that CTA to be. Under that, you then want to talk about the challenges and problems that you solve for people. Now, you want to be really, really specific. You don't want to say, oh, the problem I solve is, and I'll just use myself for a good example here. I don't want to say, hey, the problem I solve for you is that you'll have a website and you didn't have a website, because that's not really a painful problem. You want to really think like a level deeper, a layer deeper. You want to think, okay, well, if someone doesn't have a website, how does that impact them? And what is that moment that they feel that pain? So for me personally, it's someone asks for their website and they're embarrassed to send it. They feel that moment of disconnect. So they even consider sending their LinkedIn instead. Or they finish a talk, they spoke on a stage, and someone comes up to them like, oh my gosh, where can I learn more about this? And they have nowhere to direct that person online. Or someone they get a referral and they're talking to someone and someone asks for their website and they send it. And they're not even thinking like, hey, this doesn't feel aligned. And then the person just goes cold and ghosts them. And when these types of things happen, these are the problems that I speak on my website, where I'm saying, if you're experiencing any of these, it might be time for us to figure out your online presence. And that's when the next step. So again, it's hero section, pain point section. You then want to have a reframe to a dream outcome. You want to say, so it's not, don't have to do it exactly like this, but the reason you're experiencing this problem is because you haven't done X, Y, Z, right? So you need this solution. You're introducing the delivery vehicle and you say your life could look like, and you could start painting that dream outcome. Your life could look like X, Y, and Z results. When you have this high ticket offer, when you have this, high level consultant, this high ticket service, this is the type of, solution that you can experience. And you're creating that reframe of like, I don't have to have this problem. I can start to have this solution. And then under that, you'll want to put your offers, this is the, how it's going to happen. Or, you understand like what could happen, the benefits. This is how we're going to get it. And you can, depending on the type of website you have, if you have like a one-page website, which a lot of my clients get, it's, this is the exact offer, and you can have people click and book a call, or again, go into that funnel. Or you can have it lead to a sales page where it's, further selling that, offer, depending on how many offers you have, depending on your business. For a lot of consultants, I usually do recommend the one page. But at the same time, it's different for every business. And I try not to push like a specific agenda. I try to help people choose like the best solution for them. Under that is testimonials. And honestly, you can actually push these testimonials up higher. Like they don't have to be so far down the page. You can put them right under the hero section. Testimonials for specifically, you can move these around and, split them up and put some higher, some lower. One of my clients that I was working with, we just did that for him, where we had 3 call out testimonials under the hero section. Actually, 2 of my clients, we did this. For my own business, I have some written testimonials right under the hero section. I think in testimonials, and of course, you also want to have them right under the offer, because that's a really good place for you to say, hey, this is what we do. Like, problem, solution, offer. It worked for other people. It can work for you too. And then under that, so again, I'm trying to keep track of all these different sections. It's the hero section, the pain point section, or testimonials, then pain point section, the solution, the dream, the offer itself, the testimonials. I then put a process section of saying, hey, this is the step-by-step process of getting your dream outcome, right? So people, if someone doesn't really see how it works, they're gonna have a really hard time saying, okay, this is going to work for me. And if they don't see like, okay, step 1 is we're going to collect all the data and do a strategy on figuring out what the roadmap is. Step 2 is, whatever it is for everyone, it's different, but a lot of times it follows a similar flow. Step 2 is like doing the actual work and the execution and the accountability. And step 3 is you start to live this dream outcome. And of course, this does like really vary for your business. And I always suggest to make it as specific as possible to your business. You don't want it to, like, if you keep it too generic, someone won't feel how it applies to them. But once you walk someone through the 3-step process or 4-step process, they start to say, wait, this is really could work for me. This is something that I see working. And then under the process, you always want to have a frequently asked questions. And the best way to know the frequently asked questions is to record your sales calls, drop them into Claude, and say, hey, what are the most common objections people have after I drop the price? Or what are the most common objections I have when I start introducing the offer? And it will give you a list of objections. And these are great objections first of all, in terms of writing content for LinkedIn and for social media, like great questions. But specifically, your FAQ this is the place where if they have a specific objection, you can solve that before they get on a call. And that's what your FAQ should be. It shouldn't be frequently asked questions. It shouldn't be, oh, someone's wondering this about my industry, so I should write this question. If no one's asking that on a sales call, there's no reason for it to be on your website. If it's potentially blocking someone from hiring you, for sure you can include it. I don't want my words being misconstrued. But if it's really like, well, someone might be wondering this, but it's not going to impact if they're going to hire me, there's no reason for it. Your website shouldn't have 100 FAQs, because then you're going to bury the really good stuff, the ones that are going to really show people the value here. Under that, you can always have a unique value proposition section. And I sometimes, depending on the client, will stack that with an about section. Again, these could be two separate sections. They could be mixed. It really depends on the client and the situation. For this case, I'm going to say that they're separate, just to make it clear. For the unique value proposition section, right, they're scrolling. The further down they're getting, you want to make sure you're hitting very specific pieces. You want to make sure that they feel the pain, they understand the solution, they see the offer, they understand that you've done this for other people, they understand exactly how it will work for them. You're handling all their objections. The unique value proposition is, when most people work with me, they're expecting X, Y, and Z, but they don't, when they work with me, they're also getting ABC. So when you work with me, you don't just get, accounting, you get a proactive strategy to make sure that you're paying as little possible as taxes, and that includes weekly meetings, that includes whatever it is, depending on the client. Like I don't want to make up stuff that isn't a real offer. But you want to basically say, hey, you thought it was this, but you're really getting this. And you're able to stack that with value. And this is the unique value proposition. And you're saying, what makes me unique is I'm not what you expected with everyone else. And you can also, even to add further, you can also say without Z, like without, you're not getting just X, you're also getting Y without the Z. And it's like that framework of explaining like, hey, this is the value. And then, under that, there's the about section. And this is really showing the story. The about section should be your story of why you got into this, what makes you someone they should trust. And it's really your experience of, I kind of already said this, why you got into this, why you're someone they should trust, and why you started doing this. Like, why is this something that you dedicated your life to doing? Why did you start this business? Why, and like, what is the mission and the message that you're trying to help people do? And I think this section is so overlooked because people think, no one cares about your story. They just want to solve their problems. But in a time of AI, in a time of templates, and in a time of doing all these things, if you don't have a story, if you're not a person on the other end of the screen, people crave that human-to-human interaction. If you're not showing you're a person, you're not. I think you're going to lose out on building that trust. And don't get me wrong, this is not the most important part. You're not sticking this on the top in the hero section. It's not the second section under the pain point. But if someone wants to learn more about who you are as a person, to make sure you're a real person, like, make sure you're just a real person. I think at the end of the day, it's like there are so many faceless agencies and faceless companies. And it's like, I don't even know who this, like, is this a person? Am I about to get scammed? Like, if you put a face to it, it builds so much trust. And I think that that's very, very much overlooked. The section under that is, this is for you if, and you could start to actually disqualify people who wouldn't be the right fit. You can say, hey, if you're looking for, A, B, and C, then you should not hire me. And that's going to start to call in the right people. This is for you if you're looking for ABC. This is not for you if you're looking for XYZ. And it starts to create that divide. And then that final section at the bottom is called a final call to action. And if someone scrolled through this whole page, this point is to build that urgency and to create that it's just to tell someone, hey, like, you're here, like, you scrolled all the way down, you clearly want this solution, you clearly want this dream outcome. Take the next step, and you're again funneling them into your offer, whether that's to a discovery call, which again, that's my typical recommendation for consultants, especially if they're not generating enough leads and they want to generate more leads from their online presence. Sales call, if they already have tons of leads and they're not necessarily looking to, and they're looking for something else, maybe it's to funnel into a paid consult, maybe it's to funnel into a form to fill out, to apply to work together. There's so many different options. The reason I like the sales call is because it removes so much of the friction to hiring someone. Like, you're already on the calendar. You can fill in the questions with like pre-qualifying questions, which is what I do. And I tell all my clients, we should figure out what are the questions you want to ask someone before they even get on the phone. And you can put in those questions. It makes it so much easier to you get on a call. You already have all this information, and it gives you enough to do research before the call. There's so many great things you can do when it comes to setting, like having booking a sales call with a question. It puts qualified leads into your calendar. It's like a great way to wake up in the morning and be like, wait, I have a call, and tomorrow at 2 p.m. Like, I have a client who said this, Avi Friedman. He was like, the coolest feeling is like getting a notification and seeing that a lead came in through my website. And it's like, yeah, it's great because he's had a website before, and it was like a good design, but it like wasn't actually converting for his business. Then we worked together, and that's I feel like I'm bragging a little bit. I try not to brag too much, but it's humble bragging. It's a good. Okay. Anyways, not so important. Yeah, I mean, that's the final call to action, and then after that, you want to make sure you have the footer, which footer is very simple. You want to make sure you're having your privacy policy, your terms of service. You want to make sure you're doing things legally, and you want to make sure you're covered. Most people, and I can say this confidently, is like, most people will not get sued if you don't have these things. But at the end of the day, it's so important. And not just because you might get sued. It's so important because you want to just make sure you're doing everything right, and you want to make sure you're doing everything legal. You just want to make sure you're covered. You want to make sure you're doing things safe. So terms of service, privacy policy. For some of my clients, I actually recommend, and I'm not going to say this. I don't put this part in, but I'm going to say that for some of my clients, I actually suggest them to combine them onto one page, where you have a term of service and privacy policy. But I don't know if that's good advice. So the reason I suggest it is because some software options will charge you a lot more for every page that you have. So for this way, you make sure you're covered. Where you have them, I think it's fine. I'm confident enough to say that I think it's fine. You know what? If you want to put it in, you can put it in. I'm comfortable with myself as I am. I think, yeah, that's when you have that structure. That's a website that's going to convert for you. Of course, the design's important. Like, don't get me wrong, design is emotion, and like when someone lands in a really ugly website, they don't see you as a high ticket professional brand. When you look at companies like, I could just say off the top of my head, like Honeybook, which is a software for contracts, and like they have a gorgeous website. I know the agency that did their website. Their agency chart, like the starting rate is like 30 grand. They charge upwards, and for like a service like Honeybook, it's easily $250,000 website. Easily. I'm not there yet. That's okay. But like the reason they're investing is because emotion counts. Emotion for someone landing on a site, like the strategy is so important. You also want to think and take into account that we're humans and we care about things looking good. Like people want to have a good looking house. They want to, psychology shows that like we're more likely to like more attractive people. And like, there's just these, like, people care about design aesthetics. As much as they might say that they don't, They might say that they don't, but they do. And I'm not here to convince anyone. Like there's a lot of people that like are like, no, it doesn't actually impact anything. There's a reason companies spend millions and millions of dollars to rebrand and to make these small, tiny changes. And it's because they want to make sure that it emotionally impacts and connects with people. Um, and then to kind of talk about AI, because we were talking about this earlier, and that's part of the question. I want to make sure I'm addressing that. AI does one piece of a multi-step process. I don't even want to say very well, but I will say good enough. So when someone's looking to build a website, at least with me and with other service providers who focus more on like getting a website to actually convert and to grow a business and to generate leads, you're starting with a strategy, and then you're writing the content, and then you're going to do some research, and then you're going to start working on collecting the right testimonials, and then you're going to start working on building out a mood board for the brand, and then you're going to start building out the design, and you're going to go through an iterative process of designing a website, and then you're going to go into the development phase. When you go with AI, it skips to the development phase. So you'll end up with the product. You end up with the website. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for this. There is a place for the market for having something online. And if that's what you're looking for, AI is a great way to do that if you're looking for something online. If you're looking for a website. But if you're looking to create a change in your business to grow and scale your business, then AI is probably not going to be the best way to do that, at least right now. I think that will change. I think we're going to enter into a future where AI is doing so much more, so much work. It's going to be replacing a lot of jobs. But I think where we're at right now, which again, AI could create stunning websites. Stunning is a stretch. But if you know how to use the tool, it can create an okay site that looks visually great. But the goal was never just for something to be visually great. And even that, to an extent, I would die on this hill. Is I don't really love the aesthetic of very AI specific websites, and like Claude specifically. There's like a look that I see instantly. And don't get me wrong, like that's not a reason to hire a designer. Is because a different designer was saying that he can instantly tell if something's AI generated. Like for people who need to go that direction, you can. The reason not to go with AI is because when you think about it, it jumps straight to the development process. There isn't the back end strategy. There isn't the human thinking. And also, when you start to optimize for efficiency, what ends up happening is you compromise on quality. When you optimize fully, when you say, okay, I need to make sure this is as efficient as possible, it drops the quality. And I'm going to use an example that might be a little random, but if you look at like old Disney movies there was so much work and effort that went into them, and there's like something like beautiful and raw into it. And now when it's a lot of it is they created this more efficient process. And don't get me wrong, it could be that it's more profitable. I have no idea. I'm not an expert in these things, but I know that people look and compare, and they complain. I recently saw a complaint that was like, this is a complaint that was like, Toy Story 1, it looks way better than Toy Story 5. And it was like, there was a lot more effort that went into that. There was a lot more effort. And I think it really comes down to when you optimize for efficiency, you compromise on quality. Again, you can totally be efficient and have quality. I'm not saying that they contradict each other. But when the main goal is, how can we make this as efficient as possible? And that's the primary goal, is like efficiency. Then you're not focusing on the quality. You're not focusing on the result. You're not focusing on what it can do for you. I mean, that's my current thoughts on AI, as well as how to actually have a website that's going to actually convert. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that all of our listeners would love to have their website work for them. And then when they wake up in the morning and they see all those inbound calls and those inbound opportunities, that's got to be very, very exciting. You shared a raw scenario about a client who sent I guess it was a $6,000 wire transfer, and then they like completely ghosted you. Highlighting that great work requires mutual cooperation, and proactive communication. In the world of premium consulting and leadership, accepting clients who drain your momentum or disrespect the process creates massive internal friction.
Mhm.
So, how does a leader establish rigid upfront onboarding boundaries to filter out toxic client behavior,
Mhm.
ensuring they protect their team's creative energy and preserve their own emotional presence for their family at the
Mhm.
end of the day?
Mhm. It's a really good question, and I think on the one hand I need to take accountability. I need, like, if this happened, and I won't say like it was completely my fault, but there was obviously something. There was a mismanaged and a mismatched expectation. Um, I do want to say that from an outside perspective, I can say, hey, I did everything right. And to communicate what I did is I communicated that this is not just a website process when I work with my clients. I have very clear instructions in my contracts to say if I don't hear back from you from 3 days, the project gets put on hold to make sure I don't get ghosted. But at the end of the day, I don't think I communicated clearly enough that when we work together, this is not going to be just a website project. This is going to be where we get really, really clear and specific on your brand positioning. We're going to get really, really clear on what this website is going to do for your business and be in your business. And I don't know if this is exactly where I was wrong, um, but I need to take that level of accountability. Now, I do know that I have a great process that onboards my clients. Like I work so hard because for me personally, the biggest bottleneck, in my business is when projects stall and, I get paid and you have that money kind of set as cash flow for a certain number of months. And then I'm still working in that project 2 months later. That's a bottleneck in my business. Um, I wish I can say, hey, this is the exact solution that everyone should do because I'm the expert on this. Um, I have my thoughts, and I definitely will give what I think to be good advice, and some advice that a mentor recently gave me when I explained the situation that happened, and that is set very clear expectations right after you get paid, not just before. Um, Setting clear expectations after they pay. And I think that when I set the clear expectations before, I was like, hey, I'm protecting me. So I can say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm okay because you're going to only pay, and then and then you have read the documentation, um, and the contract that they signed. And I think that setting the clear expectations after, as soon as they join, so to like re-record my onboarding video, which is part of what I do. I want to make this as easy for my clients as possible. They join, they get an onboarding video that's like, hey, this is your Google Drive folder. In the Google Drive folder, this is the document that's your onboarding questionnaire. This is where we're going to upload your website photos. This is where you can access resources and stuff that help you focus on, generating more leads. I want to make this as easy for them as possible. It was not easy for me to build, but I want to make it as easy for them as possible. So but at the same time, I think that taking accountability is really important, and recognizing that the problem was a post payment miscommunication on what this actually is and what the expectations are. Oop, didn't mean to turn that off. So yeah, again, I think that the best way to do it is looking at your own process, figuring out how you can make this as easy for the client as possible. Um, of course, like I'm a big believer in taking accountability. I'm not a big it's very easy for me to say, hey, it's not my fault. I did my best to make this as easy as possible. And it's the client's fault. And the client's the bad guy because the client is not responding and the client isn't following the instructions. Um, but I think the reality is that I can always do better to make it easier for the clients. Um, it's tough because I also don't want to. I'm not 100% sure if I should say, hey, like I want to come back to the accountability and say I think that I can always do better. I can always do better. I think that right now it's a very simple process. I do. I think that including that video where it says, "Hey, these are the expectations after they pay." I think re-recording that video that I currently have, which walks them through everything, but it doesn't talk about their responsibilities. I think that that's so important, and I think that there's always stuff to do to make it better. The problem still might happen. But I think that you are always within. There's always another step that you can do to make it better. And I think that the reason that I have this mindset is because if you don't, you're at the mercy of other people, and you're like there's nothing you can do. Once you start to say it's all their fault, it might be, and you might be right. But once you start pointing the blame, you lose that autonomy to make it better and to solve the problem. So that's why this lesson of, and I do strongly believe that the client needs to show up with the full mentality of like, I need to make this work, and I'm excited for the outcome, and I'm invested in the process. But I can't control that. I can control it through proper framing in the beginning of the project, which I will do my best to work on, and I could control how they get onboarded after the process. I can try my best to help my clients be successful. That's all I can do, though. And if I start to really rigorously point at external factors instead of internally and saying, I probably could do this better and I could probably make this even easier for my clients, then I think that's the only way to really grow, and that's the only way to make this work. Or firing a client. But even so, if you're firing a client, that's something that's something within your control, and that's like a decision you can make, and that's not a pointing fingers, and that's saying like, hey, when we work together, I ignored some red flags, and I don't, because of X, Y, and Z, I don't think we're the right fit. Whether you're going to give someone a partial refund or not, I don't know. I don't want to tell anyone what to do, but I think that at the end of the day, when it comes to this kind of thing, taking accountability is like the theme that I would try to focus on. Is like, what can I do, not what did they do wrong.
Schneur, you wrote a powerful reflection about spending $12,000 on a coach at age 24, facing a 6-month stretch with 0 clients, and realizing that you never really truly graduated from self-doubt. You noted that real progress does not come from waiting for perfect confidence, but from learning to execute while feeling entirely unsure. For the ambitious founder who is currently crippled by the internal voice telling them they still have not figured it out yet, what is your internal playbook for regulating that anxiety and maintaining relentless operational consistency through imperfection?
So these are great questions. I want to first, and I hope it's okay, I'm going to try to do this quickly because I know we're running out of time. I want to first say that when it comes to coaches, I don't think that I love the coaching industry. A lot of my clients are coaches. I have continued to work with coaches past, investing $12,000 into a program that ended up just being really not the right fit for me. And at the end of the day, it's like, I think that it's the right fit for some people. You want to make sure you're getting value. And when you're investing in something, that it feels like the right thing. Now, for someone who feels like, well, nothing is working, for me personally, there's the first part is like logic. Let me logic my way out of this. And the way to logic your way out of this is to look to Hashem, look to God, look to a higher purpose. I'm assuming most of the listeners are from Jews. So you look to Hashem and you say, okay, I just connecting to the idea that none of this is in my control. It is all up to Hashem. And this is the logic piece. And of course there's the emotional piece. And again, this is my experience. There is the emotional piece, and the emotional piece is very challenging because if you feel the weight on your shoulders, it feels heavy. Step one, logic, and think, hey, it's all from Hashem. Everything's going to be okay. And the best way to look at it is to be like, well, let me look at my past experiences. It usually always works out. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but 99% of the time you look at past experiences and like it does work out. And like we felt it and we feel it and we're going through the emotions. But at the end of the day, like Hashem takes care of it. And like we don't see it, but that's part of like our job and our journey on this earth is, to have that bitachon and that trust in Hashem. Now, onto the more practical side of things, I think having a really healthy support system is very important, whether that be a coach, whether that be a therapist, whether that be, someone who can, or even friends or other entrepreneurs who, they're in a similar boat as you. Having that support system, I think, can be very helpful. And I think that's definitely like a must. You need to have that when it's like nothing feels like it's working. It's really this struggle. And I think the last step is you have to really, really internalize your value. And I think the best way to do that is to talk to your past customers. Hear what they're saying about you. Read your own testimonials. Don't think of your own testimonials as, like social proof for marketing. Think of your testimonials as, hey, someone really, really believed that the work that I did with them was really worth it and valuable and gave them a transformation enough for them to sit down and write what they really, really appreciated and enjoyed about working with me. And even if it's a testimonial that's like just talking about how good and of a pleasure you were to work with, and not even about the ROI, which again, if you can get specific testimonials, that's going to even be even better for your self-doubt, because you're going to say, wow, I'm seeing this actual tangible ROI. Or I don't want to, because it's not necessarily going to be a monetary investment, but someone's a marriage coach and like their client's marriage is fixed, or fixed, strong word, but so much stronger. And it's a CPA saved someone $2,500 or $25,000 on taxes. So it's like you look at, if you read your own testimonials, look at your own social proof, and you collect that. That's always going to be a great reminder and a great way to kind of snap out of this internal like self-doubt and this internal kind of struggle. And I can really only speak for myself. I struggle with this. I think everyone struggles with imposter syndrome to an extent, and the self-doubt. And it's especially if you're a growth-oriented person and you keep growing into the next level and the next version of yourself, and you're constantly saying, okay, well, how can I improve? How can I be better? Then yeah, of course you're going to have that imposter syndrome because you've never done this before. If you stay complacent and you stay comfortable, then you might not have the imposter syndrome because you're not growing and everything is familiar. But you double your rates, or you take on a massive client, or you speak to an audience of 1,000 people, and like if that's something you've never done before. I've never done it. The biggest audience that I've done, 50. But I would go onto a stage and I'd be like, I'm imagining myself, I would be really nervous. And the reason I would be really nervous is because I've never done it before. And like, if you want to be a growth-oriented person and keep growing, then you're going to keep putting yourself in situations that you've never done before, and you'll feel self-doubt, and that's okay. And I think that's really good. If you're not growing and you're not putting yourself in these situations, then there's no way, like you're not going to reach that next level and that next version of yourself. And you'll see that as soon as you start to feel comfortable, you'll realize you're starting to outgrow it, and you're starting to kind of reach that next level. And this is a continuous process of being a individual who wants to keep growing and have a growth mindset and keep reaching that next level.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're telling people to embrace the discomfort, and embrace the imperfect, to be the imposter, always be in transition, though, because that's what growth is. Stagnancy means just the opposite of growing. Oh, Schneur, I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom today. I've learned a lot from you. And
Thank you.
We certainly could not have done this episode of Masterful Leaders without you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Win at work, thrive at home, Lead your life.
On Masterful Leaders, we believe true success is built across every part of life, not just business. If this episode added value to you, subscribe, share it with someone you care about, and join us next time as we continue building the full package.